Okay guys, sorry about the slight delay. Okay, we're going to kick off the lightning talks with Frank. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your name, Secubus. Are we good to go? Go.
Okay. Like Chris said, I'm Frank Bredijk, although he can never say my surname. I work as security engineer for Schuberg Phyllis. Here are my other coordinates. If you miss them now, they'll be at the end of the slide. I started coding Secubus because I had a wish. I wish it would be possible to scan all my external IP addresses for vulnerabilities every month. But I was afraid it wouldn't be possible because there wouldn't be the time in the world to actually do it. I was afraid I would have to get up too early, which is about the time I went to bed yesterday. And I was afraid it wouldn't be worth it because I would have to read one report and then a week or a month later I would have to read the second report, and there would be only a few minor differences in that report. So, given all those parameters, I thought it was a problem that called for some automation. And that's why I wrote Secubus. So Secubus tries to solve the problem of working with Nessus in an operational environment and streamlining that. I like Nessus. If you search for Nessus in the App Store, you actually get Jesus, as Paul pointed out. So it's a good tool. It must be. It's free as in beer if you don't use it commercially. If you do use it commercially, it's actually not priced too bad. But it generates a lot of output. And the scanning takes a lot of time and it's not automated. And you spend a lot of time on analysis. So I think overall the work-risk ratio is off. So what do we do differently with Secubus? We try to scan automatically from the command line, which means you can do it via the cron tab. And present the results in a GUI, which allows an easy triage via filtering, and it allows you to tick off findings. So it really fits into this this cycle. You scan your infrastructure, the system compares your current scan with your previous scan, it assigns a status. New means it's found for the first time. Change means you thought it was open, or you thought it was no issue in the previous scan, but the output changed, so you have to look at it again. And gone means that somebody finally did what you told them to do and fixed their security problems, which is good. So then as a security guy, you go and assess, you assign a status to the findings, which is an either issue or no issue, depending on if it's a security risk, or solved if it's fixed and you're actually happy that it was fixed. And then you go and scan again. So scanning, like I said, happens automatically, nothing to do, nothing to see, so let's move on. Comparing is done by the system based on the status I just explained. System assigns you the status, and then you go and assess. Now this is the GUI. As you can see, it doesn't look as pretty. Version 2 will look prettier. And you can filter your findings, so you can slice and dice your findings any way you want it. You can filter by host, by port, or by plugin. And then you can assign your own status here and leave a little mental note as to when you go back 2 years later and you go, why did I put that on no issue? You have a record. Then you manually assign your status, open and no issue, fixed or hard masked. Hard masked being for those findings that Nessus is good at and are only there to show that the contractor didn't earn his money. For instance, here's the trace route to the box. So basically by doing some automatic comparison, you can get a dramatic reduction in the time you spend on analyzing your scan. So if you do it by hand, if you insist on doing it by hand, it means getting up early, looking at non-informative findings, doing a lot of boring repetitive work yourself, and have a lot of work even if your infrastructure hasn't changed a lot. If you let Secubus do it, it means you can schedule your scans, you only have to look at the findings that need your attention. You have less errors because you got less repetitive work, you got a better proportion, better mix between the effort you have to put in and the amount of change on your platform. And we all know that if platforms change frequently, there's a higher risk. So we're currently on version 1, we're working on version 2, and it will have better performance, it will have a real database backend, which makes it easier to link multiple findings to a single issue or a single issue to multiple findings. We'll support more scanners, Nmap, Metasploit Express, maybe Rapid7 Nexpose. We'll have a more open architecture instead of a collection of scripts, and more manager type of information, things like graphs, dashboards, and a report writing module, which hasn't made it to this slide yet. So where do you get it? Go to secubus.com, and if you didn't get my coordinates, they'll be in the next slide. Any questions? I got about 30 seconds, so if you can ask it in 15, I can answer it in 15. Thank you.
Hey, Mark. Please just work. Just stick it in gently. Yep. Ooh, X-Men Wolverine. No?
I'd prefer to do that. Are you starting the timer? Or?
It's already running.
Oh, shit. Okay. Folks, as you can see, my name's Mark. Presentation is being a volunteer incident handler. So everyone, I presume, knows of Ireland and has heard of Ireland. So in Ireland, we're famous for a couple of things, having really good Guinness and a green countryside. But unfortunately, what we don't have is a cert. So Ireland was, I think, the only European country that didn't have an official cert. So a couple of years ago, a group of us set up our own cert, and this presentation just talks really about being an incident handler and doing it on a voluntary basis while having a real-time job. So essentially, we're a group of volunteer handlers. We do weekly handler shifts. There's about 10 or 12 of us. Local security professionals, again, all real-time jobs, doing it voluntarily, and not-for-profit organisation. Essentially what we do is we take alerts in from other certs across Europe, from organisations like Arbor Networks, emails and things like that, and then we filter them and send them out to our constituents. So that would be 300 or 400 companies across Ireland, and this is all done not-for-profit, free, and we wanted basically an alert system that wasn't like BugTrack. So if you're on BugTrack, basically you get 400 or 500 vulnerabilities a week, and we didn't really want that. We wanted something more targeted. And what do we see? Essentially, we see, like everyone else, we see viruses, trojans, spyware, web application vulnerabilities. But what we did see last year was something that Stephen touched on earlier on. This basically is Trinity College, so that's a university in Dublin. We saw a bunch of legitimate websites in Ireland getting hacked. iframe was injected into them. The domains were all registered in Russia. So the iframe pointed to one domain, which redirected to multiple other domains. Everything was registered in Russia, but the websites were actually hosted in China. And as a result of making GET requests and POST requests to those websites in China, you had scareware downloaded onto your desktop, and that resulted in making SSL connections to websites hosted in Canada with valid SSL certs and stuff like that. So if it hadn't been for us, we wouldn't. No one in Ireland would have known that issue and known that multiple websites were hacked. So we did that in our spare time. So essentially, that's why we're there. We're there to help people. But unfortunately, as anyone who's an incident handler knows, you get a multitude of reactions. The first one is usually, holy shit, what am I going to do? I've been hacked, it's the end of the world. The second one is actually just disappeared, but it's basically what the fuck. So what we try and do is we follow like a Zen process, and this Zen process is essentially, I think Chris Nickerson touched on it, it's basically learning how to communicate with the users in a better way. Instead of going, hey, someone got shell on your system, it's, look, you've got this vulnerability, it's being exploited, and it's going to cost you this much. And yeah, mixed up the orders. In the last 2 years, I've, I guess, probably handled, I don't know, 40 or 50 incidents, and out of those 40 or 50, 2 people have said thank you. So, we do a volunteer service, we help people, but don't be expecting people to actually thank you for it. And essentially this is why I volunteer. Brian Honan's the head of CERT, and he keeps promising that we're going to get a new handler to, lift the workload, but she hasn't arrived yet, unfortunately. So, Yeah. Finally then, from the newswire, IrisCon, we have our own conference. It's part of the non-for-profit approach that we take. SANS are one of our sponsors. It's 18th of November. It's held in Dublin. There's a recession in Dublin. Prices have gone down, hotel prices have gone down, beer's gone down. You know, there's a lot of people like looking for a way out. So if you're a rich single security guy and you've got like a couple of days free, you know, come on over. There's world-class speakers, and hotels are pretty cheap, and there's lots of beer. And there's also a Capture the Flag contest, which is based on the SANS Sec 560 and some of the Hex Factor stuff as well, so it's quite similar to that. And there's Guinness, in case you didn't hear that. So that's basically it.
Okay, Andreas?
That's what she said.
Wait. Could be a man. No.
You're not home.
Where's full screen on this piece?
Okay. Hello, my name is Andreas, and the title of my talk is Procrastinators Do It Tomorrow, because we are all been waiting way too long to do something about computer security. Yeah, if you look at the IT security market, the people spend a lot of money on security solutions, 30 billion a year. Half is on services, that's you guys. The other half is hardware and software that does interesting stuff, and half of that, again, is virus scanners and firewalls. Now, we all know how much virus scanners and firewalls help, and I think Joe has shown how the other stuff that the security industry is selling, like IDSs, network access control, etc., is working. There's pictures missing. The fuck? Okay, so in the end, you have the feeling that defense is dead, but since you cannot buy anything that actually helps against what real attackers can do, right? If somebody writes a target exploit right for you, you're fucked. So, but my stance is that defense is not dead. It's like this punk, he's just sleeping. And how am I gonna... Macintoshes. I hate those. There are my other slides.
You wouldn't need it
yeah.
if your Linux was
okay,
working.
so defense is just sleeping. If you look at the computers we use, they've been inspired, they actually are Unix, or they are Unix inspired, because current Windows is modeled after the DEC operating systems, and those were modeled after Unix, and Unix actually was a pun on Multics. Multics was a operating system for Honeywell supercomputers. You see it here in that picture, and that's 4 years ago. And they invented concepts like using high-level languages to write a kernel. They actually invented the concept of kernels because they invented the concept of rings. So what you see there is an actual picture from a brochure where they are advertising rings as security mechanisms. Yeah? And they invented virtual memory. And that, folks, is what we are still using today. And that's fact. So I hate it. So things have changed. It's 40 years have passed, and there has been scientific progress in formal verification. Now, back then we proved 10 lines of code to be correct manually. These days you have tools that can do higher order logic and thus abstract formal verification. And you have actual projects out there that are formalized. CompCert is my favorite example. It's a compiler that gives proof that the input is semantically equivalent to the output. EADS is using that for being able to run proofs across their source code instead of across the binary, which they used to do.